QuickBooks Pro Plus Desktop 2022 Report Filters. Get ready because we bookkeeping pros are moving up the hilltop with QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2022. Here we are in our free QuickBooks sample file, sample raw castle construction, going through the setup process with the view drop down, the open windows list on the left hand side, company drop down, home page in the middle, maximizing the home page to the gray area, opening up now the balance sheet. That is our focus. Can do so multiple ways. Drop down could go to the report center. You might have it in your favorite reports, for example, but I like going down here to the company and financial and then going down to the drop down of the balance sheet standard. And so that's the way I'm going to do it because that's how I like to do it. So we're going to go there. And then we're going to be maximizing or increasing the font size to 14. So I'm going to go up to the customized reports to do that. We're going to go to the fonts and numbers where we will focus more time in a future presentation. But now we're going to change the font. Changing the font to 14. I'm going to bring it up to 14 on the font. And then we're going to say OK and say yes. And then that should be it. We're going to say OK. We have changed the font for font's sake. We're going to close down this item on the left-hand side. In prior presentations, we went through some of the adjustable items on reports on the balance sheet, but similar to all reports, although the ability or usefulness of it can change from report to report. Also note that many of the kind of things that we might do could be grouped into the types of reports as to whether they're going to be a point-in-time report like the balance sheet, needing only one date, or a range report like the income statement. So let's take a look at the filter option now, customizing reports up top. In the display area, we looked at this last time, and now we're going to get to this bottom part in future presentations when we do comparative reports. That's generally when those come into play, so we will get there. Now we're going to go to the Filters tab, focusing in on it. The Filter tab, we're going to show it on this balance sheet report, but realize that it's going to be more applicable, more useful oftentimes to more extensive timing type of reports a lot of the time. So we'll give an idea of the filters. We'll use it later when we start to run other types reports as well. But we're going to be filtering obviously more options down on the balance sheet with the filter. So we have more filtering options to show exactly what we want to be showing. So for example, the most common filter we might first think of is the account filter. So I might say I would like to filter my balance sheet by account. Hitting the drop down here, we might choose like one account or all asset accounts, all current asset accounts. For example, let's say all asset accounts. And then it says include split detail. I'm going to say no split detail. We'll keep the default here and say OK. And now we've got just the asset accounts down below to get to the current assets, liabilities, and equity has now disappeared because we filtered it out of existence. Now to remove the filters, you got a few different options. One, you can hit the show filters right here, which is nice. And you can just close out the filter. You can close out the filter this way. I'll keep this one here. Or you could go to the customized reports, go back to the filtering option. If I was to add, say, that same filter, say we're going to put that same filter, the asset accounts, it shows up on the right-hand side. So here's where the filter is at. If I wanted to remove it, I could select that particular filter and remove the filter in this way, that then bringing back the liabilities and the equity. So like I say, on the balance sheet, that might not seem too useful because the balance sheet is already kind of summarized data. It's kind of like the end result and the summarizing of the data on the balance sheet. Where it becomes a lot more useful is when we get into a lot of the detailed reports. So for example, if I was to go into the checking account, double clicking on it, now we've got our transaction by account detailed report, and we've got different options that we could basically filter on here. For example, the bill payment versus the deposit. We could sort by type, which is a common type of filter. Let's do that. We can go to the customized report filters, and then we can look at these types of items. Let's just kind of name them out here. The aging might be something that would be more applicable on an aging type of report. So if it was like a accounts receivable aging or accounts payable, we could sort by amount. So we might say I would like to see an amount that's within a certain range, for example. So we might say that we want to see amounts, for example, that are between like $500 to $1,000 amounts. and say, let's check that filter. And so now we've got everything here from 5,000 to up to 1,000. So we could filter by range. I can remove that filter by going to the customize filters up top, filters option. We could say, all right, I don't want that filter anymore. Let's remove it. I'm going to say, let's get rid of that particular filter and OK. So now we've got all our data that is over the 1,000 included. Then I can go to customize reports up top, filtering options. So we've got the birth date that might be applicable for, certain types of reports if we're running data reports for vendors, customers, employees, billing status. So that would be items related to, a billing vendor kind of information. Classes, class tracking is going to be applicable for certain types of companies, such as this one, a job cost company running reports that are class-based. We have a whole nother course looking at that. That could be a useful tool. Cleared, that's going to be a specialized if it's colored. Contract number, that would be for a contracting type of client or type of business. Customer type, so if we were to run reports that had customer information to it, then the customer type could be applicable there. Date formats, then we could range the dates, but of course we could filter by the dates up top as well. We can get to more detailed filters on the date. Detail level, discount available, due date. So those could be applicable on any kind of report where there are due dates like invoices or bills or something like that. Entered or modified, estimate active, FOB, that's shipping related information, might be relevant on inventory reports. Inactive inventory items is adjustment. Items might be relevant when we're dealing with certain reports that deal with basically items, possibly inventory or service items. Job status has to do with reports that are going to be dealing with a job cost system. Material, if we have inventory, memos, so you could sort by the memo possibly if you wanted to have these memos that could be applicable for a cash item. So you could try to search by a particular memo that might be in place. So if I searched, for example, PMT #17 and said, okay, I want to find that very specific thing. There we go. We got searching by the memo. I can go to customize reports up top, filters. Let's remove that one. Remove the memo. Scrolling down, we've got by name that we can filter by. So we got the name, account note, name, address, city, email, which would be applicable for contact type of reports, name, state, and then zip code. So these would be applicable if we're doing vendor lists or customer lists. PO number if we're searching a list of purchase orders for a report. Paid status, paid through. So payment method. So that would be, if we're doing things that have payment method items included. Payroll items if we're processing payroll reports. Posting status, preferred vendor, received. Sales tax would be applicable if we're looking at sales tax reports. Ship date, spouse's name, templates, terms, transaction type. So this actually is one that could be quite common, transaction type. So we might then want to say that in this particular transaction report, which is in cash, we might say, I would like to see, let's say, multiple items. I'd like to see the checks, and I'd like to see the payments and the journals maybe. So I'd say, okay, and let's check those out. So then we got just basically this type field. That's a very common filter kind of option, because if you're dealing with a report that has a whole bunch of different types, such as like a checking account, that's one way that you can drill down on the data you're looking for, possibly looking for items that could most likely be decreases, as we're looking at now, the checks and the payment forms, and possibly the journal entries resulting could be an increase or decrease with the journal entries. Reports drop down, filters, and so we go all the way back down. That's the one I really wanted to look at. Vendor type, voided, workers' comp code, and so on. So you can see that these types of reports will become more and more useful, or these filtering options will become more and more useful as you get more specialized data that you're trying to look at and trying to zero in on more specialized kind of transactions. And we'll use those from time to time as we go through our practice problems in the future.